The crying began before Emma even saw them. A thin, sharp wail cut through the quiet afternoon of the small mountainside restaurant, echoing between the wooden beams like a warning. She rushed from behind the counter with a tray in hand, heart thudding, already imagining a hurt child. But when she turned the corner and saw who sat at the table by the window, the tray slipped in her grip, because the boy wasn't human. And the man holding him, tall, pale, and terrifyingly calm, was none other than King Darius, ruler of the vampire kingdom of Valinor, a name whispered in fear across every border. The boy sobbed uncontrollably, small fists trembling over his eyes, his dark hair sticking to his forehead from the heat of the tantrum. Customers stared, confused, afraid, some preparing to leave. Darius didn't move. His expression was cold, controlled, but there was a tension in his jaw that Emma recognized only because she had seen it before in exhausted single parents. Yet no one dared approach him. No one but her. Emma set the tray aside, pulled in a shaky breath, and crossed the room, ignoring the waitress at the bar who silently pleaded with her not to go near him. She stopped at the table and looked at the boy, then at the king, and spoke softly. "May I try something?" His crimson eyes lifted to hers, surprised that a human dared to speak so directly. Emma didn't wait for permission. She crouched beside the crying child, letting her voice fall into that gentle rhythm she used with her little cousins. "Hey, you're safe. I'm Emma. Can I help you?" The boy hiccuped, his tiny fangs visible as he whispered a name through his tears. "Leo." She smiled. "Leo, look at me. I know what you need." She carefully opened her arms, offering a space of comfort no one had dared to give him. And to everyone's shock, especially Darius's, the child crawled into her embrace and quieted almost instantly. His breathing steadied, his small hand gripping her apron. "He just needs a mom," Emma murmured before she could stop herself, the words slipping out like a truth she didn't know she carried. But before we continue, I want to invite you to something very special. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like. This helps me see that you support me and enjoy my stories. And comment below which city you're watching from. Now, let's continue. The king stared at the scene as if witnessing something forbidden. Emma felt the weight of his gaze, heavy as stone, yet filled with something she didn't expect. Confusion. Kings were not used to being surprised. Vampires even less. She rose slowly, still holding Leo, and only then noticed how cold the boy's skin felt, like a small winter pressed against her chest. "He's tired," she said. "Overwhelmed, maybe overstimulated with all the smells, sounds, attention." Darius tilted his head, studying her with sharpened curiosity. "Humans avoid us," he said quietly. "Why do you not?" Emma shrugged, though her heart was pounding. Crying kids are crying kids, doesn't matter the species. The boy nuzzled against her shoulder, letting out a soft sigh that made several customers gasp. No one had ever seen the vampire prince calm down in public. The king stood, towering over her, yet she didn't back away. He extended his arms to take Leo, but the prince whimpered and clung tighter to her. Darius froze. His control slipped for half a second, revealing something raw, fear, not of her, but of failing his child. Emma swallowed hard. She didn't know the politics of the vampire kingdom, didn't understand why the prince was trembling so much, or why Darius looked like a man carrying a wound he refused to show. But she understood loneliness. She had been living with it since the day her mother vanished years ago, leaving only debts and silence behind. She shifted Leo in her arms, her voice quiet. "Let me take him to the back room. There's less noise there. You can come with me if you'd like." For a moment that stretched too long. The king said nothing. Then he nodded once, a gesture so regal and precise it seemed to carry centuries of discipline. Emma led them through the kitchen, past the cooks who froze mid-movement, knives suspended in the air as if time itself hesitated. The back room was small, filled with bags of flour and stacked boxes, but it was warm. Leo relaxed instantly. Emma sat on an overturned crate and held him until his trembling softened. Darius remained near the doorway, hands clasped behind his back, afraid to move too close. "He hasn't slept properly in days," Darius said after a long silence. His voice was low, almost fragile beneath its power. "He misses his mother." Emma's chest tightened. She passed? He hesitated. Not exactly. His answer felt like a shard of ice sliding between words. Emma didn't push. Instead, she gently rocked Leo. The boy reached up, touching her face with a tiny cold hand, and she felt something break open inside her. A tenderness she thought she had buried forever. Darius watched her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Humans fear what they don't understand," he murmured. "You don't." Emma shook her head. "Fear and kindness aren't opposites." She glanced at the prince. "Sometimes people just need someone to choose them, even for a minute." The king looked at his son, and something softened in his expression. A crack in the armor of a ruler burdened by too many secrets. Emma knew she should hand the child back. She knew she should put distance between herself and a world that didn't belong to her. But when Leo's fingers curled around hers, she stayed. And Darius didn't stop her. The air felt charged, as if the moment itself recognized that something impossible was beginning, a connection that defied rules, kingdoms, and the dangerous line between human and vampire. The boy finally fell asleep on her shoulder. Emma whispered, "He's safe now." Darius exhaled, a slow release of tension she hadn't realized he carried. His voice was almost a whisper when he said, "I owe you more than you know." She met his gaze, unaware that the twist waiting for her, the one that would change her life forever, was already unfolding in the silence between them. Darius did not leave the restaurant right away. He stood in the dim back room as Emma gently laid the sleeping prince on a folded apron, creating a small cushion on top of the crate. The boy didn't stir. The air felt warmer, calmer, as if Leo's rest had momentarily softened the sharp edges of the world. Emma brushed a lock of hair from his forehead, her fingertips grazing skin cold as marble. When she looked up, she caught the king staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. Somewhere between suspicion, gratitude, and a depth of worry he kept hidden behind centuries of control. Emma motioned him outside so Leo could sleep. Darius followed, closing the door behind them with silent precision. The hallway buzzed with the scents of garlic, baking bread, and sizzling oil, all things Emma knew vampires weren't fond of. Yet Darius didn't flinch. His focus remained on her as they walked. She wiped her hands nervously against her apron, aware of how small their world suddenly felt. "He must be exhausted," she said. "Kids hold everything inside until they can't anymore." Darius lowered his gaze, his voice threaded with an ache she hadn't expected. "He hasn't stopped crying since the night she disappeared." Emma stopped. Her heart pounded at the weight of his words. Disappeared wasn't the same as leaving, nor dying. It meant something deeper, stranger, darker, and the fact that he didn't elaborate meant the truth was dangerous. She kept her voice steady. "I'm sorry, truly." Darius studied her face as though searching for something. "You calmed him without fear, without hesitation. That is unusual." Emma gave a small shrug. "My mother used to say every child speaks the same language when they're hurting." The king tilted his head. "Your mother was wise?" A slow, bitter smile touched Emma's lips. "Maybe, but she didn't stay long enough for me to learn much." They stepped into the main dining area, and the murmurs died instantly. Customers froze, frightened to breathe near the vampire king. Darius's presence filled the room like storm clouds rolling in, dark and commanding. Emma stood beside him, a slender human woman with flour on her apron, and somehow her calm seemed to tether the atmosphere. She cleared her throat. "Everything is all right. Just give the prince some space to rest." Her voice carried more authority than she felt, but the room obeyed. Darius leaned closer, his tone lower than the room could hear. "Your composure is curious." Emma blinked. "Because I don't kneel in terror?" "Because you don't pretend," he corrected. His eyes were fixed on her, unblinking, sharp. "Most humans hide their thoughts when they stand before a king. You do not." Emma forced a laugh. "Maybe I should practice." His answer was soft. "Do not." Their strange, quiet moment broke when her manager, Rosa, rushed to them. She was pale with panic, wringing a towel in her hands. "Emma, you cannot just take the prince to the back. Do you know what could happen if—" She halted when Darius turned to her. His red eyes softened just enough to keep the peace. "Your employee acted with honor and protected my son. No punishment will fall on her. Rosa's knees nearly gave out, but she nodded and stumbled away. Emma exhaled, rubbing her temples. You scare people without intending to. I am aware. Do you ever get tired of that? His jaw tightened. I cannot afford to. Her gaze softened. Maybe your son can. For the first time, Darius looked away first. Moments later, Leo stirred in the back room, and Emma hurried to him. When she opened the door, the boy reached for her instantly, still half asleep. Darius hesitated in the doorway, as if afraid he might interrupt something sacred. Emma lifted Leo into her arms, the child curling against her neck with complete trust. Darius watched with a look that made her breath catch. Raw vulnerability mixed with hope he was trying to force back down. Emma walked him to the front of the restaurant where fresh air from the mountains drifted through the open windows. Leo clung to her, tiny fingers gripping her shirt like she was the only anchor in his world. When she glanced at Darius, she caught his expression shifting, softening, breaking. He hasn't held anyone like that since she vanished, he said quietly. Emma's throat tightened. Do you think she left willingly? Darius didn't answer. The silence spoke louder than his words ever could. Leo suddenly twisted and pointed outside. Bird. Emma smiled. Yes, sweetheart. It's a sparrow. Darius seemed surprised to hear such tenderness directed at his child. He understands both human and vampire languages, he murmured. But he rarely speaks. Emma kissed the boy's hair gently. He'll talk when he feels safe. Darius opened his mouth to reply, but at that exact moment, 3 figures appeared at the entrance. Vampires, guards. Their uniforms bore the crest of Valinor, and their expressions were tense. Your Majesty, the tallest one said, we must return to the capital. The council demands your presence. There have been developments. Darius stiffened, his calm cracking with irritation. What kind of developments? The guard's eyes flicked to Emma, then to the boy in her arms. Not here, sire. Emma felt Leo trembling again. His small hands tightened around her. She instinctively pressed him closer, whispering reassurance. Darius noticed and made a decision that shocked everyone present. She comes with us. Emma blinked. What? The guard's eyes widened. Your Majesty, a human. She calmed the prince, Darius said. He will not release her, and we have no time for another collapse. Emma's heart raced. I can't just leave. My shift, my job. Rosa stumbled forward. Go, Emma. For the love of God, go. I'll handle everything. Before Emma could process anything, Leo clung to her harder, burying his face in her shoulder. Darius extended a hand to her. Not a command. A request. Come, please. The word please from a king did something to her. Something irreversible. She stepped forward. And the moment she crossed the threshold of the restaurant, Emma sensed it. A change in the air, a shift in the world. As if an unseen door had opened and she was no longer on familiar ground. The guards closed in around them, forming a protective circle as they moved. Darius stayed close, his voice low. There is something you must know. Leo did not cry today because he was tired. He cried because he sensed something returning. Something tied to his mother's disappearance. Emma swallowed hard. Returning? Darius met her eyes with a truth that chilled her more than the mountain wind. Yes, and he sensed it on you. Her heart stopped. The prince clung tighter. And the twist she didn't understand yet began to take root in her bones. The ride to Valinor began in silence, but nothing about it felt still. The carriage wasn't the wooden kind Emma expected. It was made of dark metal with crimson lines pulsing faintly along its edges, as if the entire vehicle were alive with restrained magic. Inside, the walls shimmered with a soft blue glow that kept the shadows at bay. Leo sat curled on Emma's lap, already calmer, but still gripping her shirt with the fierce instinct of a child who had known too much fear for too long. Darius sat across from them, his posture regal yet restless, as if he were fighting the urge to pace. Emma kept her focus on the boy, smoothing his hair, whispering soft reassurances. But she felt Darius's gaze on her, felt the weight of a question he hadn't asked yet. She looked up. What exactly did you mean when you said Leo sensed something returning, and sensed it on me? The king exhaled slowly, as if debating how much truth she could bear. Vampire children possess heightened intuition, he said, especially royal-born. They sense emotions deeper than words, intentions, and echoes. Emma frowned. Echoes? Imprints left by power, he clarified. By presence, by someone who matters to them. Emma's stomach nodded. But I've never met his mother. Not in any way you would recognize, Darius murmured. His crimson eyes were steady but softened with something almost human. Yet when Leo touched you, he stopped crying as if he had found something he lost. Emma looked down at the boy, feeling the chill of his small body and the unexpected warmth blooming between them. Are you saying he thinks I'm his mother? No, Darius said firmly. He knows you are not, but he senses something. Familiar. Something tied to her. Emma shook her head. But that's impossible. Darius's silence said it wasn't. The carriage rolled through a thick forest, moonlight slicing through branches like silver blades. The air outside grew colder, sharper. Emma's heart thudded. She hadn't planned any of this. She had clocked in for a shift at the restaurant, and now she was sitting across from a vampire king who stared at her as if she carried a secret neither of them understood. Leo stirred, whimpering softly. Emma held him closer, rocking him gently. His trembling eased. Darius watched, his jaw tightening with emotion he couldn't show. You have a way with him, he said quietly. It is confounding. Emma managed a faint smile. Kids trust who feels safe. And how do you make yourself safe to a prince born into a world of danger? Emma hesitated before answering. By knowing what it feels like to be left alone. The admission slipped out before she could stop it. Darius's gaze sharpened. Your mother, he said softly. She disappeared? Emma nodded, swallowing the ache that still lived inside her. One morning she was just gone. No note, no explanation, nothing missing except her. Darius leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice low. How old were you? 10. Silence filled the carriage, thick and heavy. You survived, he said. You learned compassion instead of bitterness. That is rare. Emma looked away, blinking back the sting in her eyes. Maybe I became the person I wish had found me that day. Darius studied her with unguarded intensity. Perhaps that is why Leo sensed you. She shook her head. But why me? Why now? The king's voice dropped to a whisper. Because his mother disappeared just like yours. Emma's breath caught. She left without a trace? A trace, he corrected. But one so faint even our strongest trackers cannot follow it. His eyes darkened. And before she vanished, she said something disturbing. Emma waited. Darius's next words froze the air. She said she felt connected to someone she had never met. Someone who would one day determine Leo's fate. Emma's pulse thundered in her ears. And you think that someone is me? I do not know, Darius admitted. But Leo sensed her echo on you, and that cannot be ignored. The carriage slowed. Emma glanced out the window and gasped. Valinor rose from the earth like a living monument, tall obsidian towers glowing with silver veins of magic, bridges suspended in air, and lanterns floating without strings. The city was both ancient and breathtaking, every line of architecture carved with purpose. But beneath its beauty, Emma felt something else rising from its stones. Sorrow, a deep, lingering ache, as if the whole kingdom mourned something lost. Guards opened the carriage doors. Cold night air brushed her skin, carrying scents of snow, pine, and something metallic she couldn't name. Darius stepped out first. When he turned back to help her, Emma froze. Kings didn't offer hands, yet he did. She placed her hand in his, surprised by how warm he felt despite everything she'd heard about vampires. Leo tightened his grip around her neck as she stepped down. He fears the palace, Darius said softly. He associates it with her absence. Emma rubbed the boy's back. I've got you, she whispered. Inside, the grand hall stretched endlessly, lined with portraits of past rulers whose painted eyes seemed to follow them. Vampires in uniforms watched silently from the shadows. Some bowed. Others stared at the human woman holding the prince as if she were a threat or a miracle they couldn't interpret. Darius ignored them all and guided Emma to a smaller room lined with books and maps. Here, he said, we need privacy. Emma sat on a cushioned chair with Leo still clinging to her. Darius remained standing. There is more you must understand, he said. Before she vanished, Leo's mother believed someone was searching for her, someone from outside the kingdom. She said she felt their presence lingering at the edges of her mind. Emma frowned. But that makes no sense. Darius stepped closer, voice darkening. Unless it was not a physical presence. Unless it was something deeper. A bond neither of you realized existed. Emma's breath quickened. You're saying I'm connected to a vampire queen? She was not a queen, Darius corrected. She was human. Emma froze. The world tilted. Human? Her voice trembled. But vampire kings don't marry humans. They do not, Darius confirmed, which is why her disappearance nearly fractured the kingdom. Emma felt cold all over. But what does that have to do with me? Darius held her gaze with a truth that made her entire body tense. Because you and she were born in the same year, he said softly, on the same day, and she always believed she had a twin somewhere. Emma felt her heartbeat stop. Her name, Darius whispered, was Elise, a name Emma had never heard, but somehow felt like a memory she had lost. Leo lifted his head and touched Emma's cheek gently, as if confirming something only he could sense. Emma's voice cracked. Are you saying I might be her sister? Darius stared at her with the weight of a kingdom behind his words. I am saying the truth may be far more complicated than that. Emma couldn't breathe for a moment. The room around her, the floating candles, the high shelves of ancient books, the cold stone walls, felt distant, almost blurred. Elise. A stranger's name, yet it stirred something deep inside her chest, like a cord plucked from a forgotten memory. Leo nuzzled into her neck, sensing her fear. Darius stood in front of her, tall and unmoving, his red eyes quieter now, as if he were waiting for her to catch up to a truth she had never been prepared to face. She swallowed hard. I don't remember a sister. My mother never mentioned. Her voice cracked. Never. Darius nodded once, but there was sorrow in the gesture, not dismissal. If Elise was truly connected to you, he said, then someone hid that truth very carefully. Not from us, but from you. Emma hugged Leo tighter, mindful of his tiny cold hands that clutched her shirt. Why me? Why was it hidden from me? Darius took a slow breath before answering. Because Elise was not just any human. She was born with something rare, something old. Emma flinched. Old? What does that mean? He walked closer, but his movements were slow, cautious, as though he were approaching someone standing on a cliff's edge. She had a gift, or a curse, depending on who you ask, an intuitive bond that allowed her to feel echoes of powerful beings, not see them, not speak to them, merely sense them. Emma stared at him, heart pounding. And you think I have the same thing? Leo believes so, Darius said, and he is not easily mistaken. Emma forced herself to breathe, forcing her mind to stay steady. If Elise had this ability, could it have put her in danger? Yes, Darius said without hesitation. The council feared her. Some believed the bond she carried could reveal ancient secrets. Others feared she would be used as a weapon. Even I. His jaw tightened. Even I did not fully understand her. Emma felt her stomach twist. Did you love her? For a moment, the king did not move. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and steady. I respected her, trusted her, and I cared for her more than I should have allowed myself to. But love is a word I do not use lightly. He held Emma's gaze. I do not lie to you. Emma's throat tightened. She looked down at Leo, whose small face carried peaceful innocence mixed with something deeper, a weight no child should have to bear. Darius's voice softened. Elise did not choose to leave him. Of that, I am certain. Emma looked up sharply. Then someone took her. The king nodded once. Yes. A knock on the door interrupted them. One of the guards, the one with gray streaks in his hair, stepped in. Your Majesty, the council insists on speaking with you tonight. They say it cannot wait. Darius's jaw clenched. I will go shortly. The guard hesitated, looking at Emma with thinly veiled distrust. Should the human be taken to the guest quarters? Leo whimpered the instant the guard spoke, as if the mere suggestion of separation terrified him. Emma tightened her arms around the boy, protective instinct rising like fire. Darius raised a hand. No, she stays with the prince. The guard frowned. But that is an order, Darius said, voice sharp enough to cut stone. The guard bowed and left. Emma exhaled shakily. Your council doesn't like me. They fear what they do not understand, Darius answered. They feared Elise as well. Emma met his gaze. And you're different? The king lowered his head slightly, an oddly vulnerable gesture. I learned too late what fear can destroy. Leo whimpered again and reached up to Emma's cheek. She kissed his forehead gently, feeling the icy softness of his skin. He's tired, she whispered. But he feels safer with you, Darius replied. That is something I cannot ignore. Emma stood slowly, rocking Leo as she walked toward a nearby window. Valinor's lights flickered in the distance, silver lights illuminating the night in long, glowing paths. She could see the horizon where mountains cut into the sky like jagged silhouettes. So much beauty, yet everything felt tense, coiled, as if the entire kingdom held its breath. Darius stepped beside her. Elise often stood here, he said. She claimed she could feel the world humming beneath the stone. Emma's breath caught. A faint vibration tickled the soles of her feet, soft and steady, like a heartbeat beneath the palace. She thought it was her imagination until Leo lifted his head and whispered, "Hum." Emma froze. "Did you hear that?" she asked. Darius's eyebrows furrowed. "You felt it?" "Yes," Emma whispered, and Leo heard it. Darius stared at her, something dawning in his eyes. Elise felt it too. She believed the palace itself held memories, echoes of old magic. If you can sense it? Emma's heart pounded. What does that mean? Darius took a long breath. It means we are running out of time. Emma turned toward him sharply. Time for what? Darius walked to a nearby table and unrolled a map embroidered with glowing silver marks. For the truth to surface, he said, and for whoever took Elise to realize that her echo has awakened again. Emma's blood ran cold. You think someone will come after me. I think, Darius said carefully, that whoever feared Elise will fear you too, and they will act. Emma held Leo tighter. What do we do? Darius stepped closer, lowering his voice. We protect you, and we uncover what Elise discovered before she vanished. Emma's heart thudded. She looked down at Leo's small face, the way he clung to her as though she were the only safe place in the world. She wasn't his mother. She wasn't even ready to face her own past. But something inside her, something deep and instinctive, whispered that she had stepped into this boy's life for a reason. Darius studied her with a depth that made her feel exposed. Emma, he said softly, if you are connected to Elise, the path ahead will not be simple. But you are no longer walking it alone. Emma swallowed hard. What do you need from me? For now, Darius said, stay close to Leo. Trust your instincts, and no matter what happens tonight, do not leave the prince's side. Emma nodded slowly. She didn't fully understand what was coming, but the certainty in Darius's eyes settled something inside her. She shifted Leo in her arms and whispered, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. As Darius stepped toward the door to face the council, Emma felt a ripple of cold air sweep across the room. The candles flickered. The hum beneath the palace grew stronger, vibrating up her spine. Leo lifted his head again and whispered a word so faint she barely heard it. Coming. Emma froze. Darius turned sharply, and the truth that had been waiting in the shadows began to move toward them. The palace corridors felt different that night. Emma sensed it the moment Darius left for the council meeting, the moment the guards closed the heavy door behind him. The air grew colder, sharper, as though the stone walls themselves were listening. Leo clung to her tightly, his soft breaths brushing her neck. Emma paced the small room, trying to focus on the boy rather than the growing vibration under her feet. The same hum she had felt earlier, now steadier, deeper, almost pulsing. A soft light flickered along the edges of the bookshelf. Emma turned sharply, heart racing, but it vanished. She exhaled shakily. Okay, she whispered. You're just tired. But the unease didn't fade. She carried Leo to a cushioned armchair and sat down, holding him close. His tiny fingers curled into the fabric of her shirt, his cold cheek resting over her heartbeat. What's happening, sweetheart? She murmured. You feel it too, don't you? Leo didn't answer, but his body trembled faintly. She stroked his hair, trying to steady both of them. Minutes passed in tense silence until footsteps echoed outside the door. Emma tensed. These steps were slow, heavy, dragging slightly, as if the person walking wasn't supposed to be there. A shadow slid under the gap at the bottom of the door. She held her breath. Leo whimpered, burying his face in her chest. Then, as quickly as it came, the shadow faded. Emma forced herself to breathe. The palace was full of guards, full of strange magic, full of things she didn't yet understand. But she wasn't alone. She repeated that to herself, like a mantra. The door suddenly swung open. Emma jerked back, clutching Leo more tightly, until she saw who stood on the threshold. Darius. He entered with a storm in his expression, closing the door behind him in one swift motion. "Are you both unharmed?" His voice was low, edged with urgency. Emma nodded shakily. "Yes, but something is wrong here." Darius's jaw tightened. "The council is divided. Some believe Elise's disappearance was orchestrated by an outside force. Others believe it was connected to her gift. The same gift you may carry." Emma swallowed. "They think I might be in danger. They think we all might be," Darius corrected. Leo reached for him, and Darius knelt beside Emma, brushing a gentle hand over his son's hair. For the first time since she met him, Emma saw real fear in the king's eyes. Not fear for himself, but for Leo. "Something is stirring," he said. "And it responds to you." Emma shook her head. "How can that be? I don't feel like I have any special power." Darius lifted his gaze, eyes glowing faintly. "Power doesn't always feel like lightning. Sometimes it feels like a whisper." Before we continue, tell me in the comments what you think of this story so far and what you would do in her place. Don't leave the video, because what comes next will give you chills. Emma shifted uneasily. The humming beneath the floor strengthened again, vibrating up her spine. Darius noticed immediately. "You feel it again." Emma nodded. "Yes, and it's louder." Darius stood swiftly. "There is something you must see." He extended a hand. She took it automatically, balancing Leo against her shoulder. As soon as their hands touched, the hum jolted, as if reacting to their connection. Darius's eyes widened. "It recognizes you." Emma didn't understand, but she followed him out of the room, down quiet corridors lit by floating lamps that flickered as they passed. The palace felt more alive than stone should feel, pulsing with unseen energy. Leo stirred, whispering a single word. "Below." Emma froze. "What did he say?" "The lower chambers," Darius said grimly. Elise spent much of her time there before she vanished. They descended a spiraling staircase, the air growing colder with each step. The walls narrowed, as if the palace were swallowing them whole. Emma clutched Leo tighter. At the bottom of the stairs, a large door carved with symbols stood half open. A faint silver light glowed around its edges. Emma hesitated. "What is this place?" Darius stepped through the doorway. Elise called it the Echo Hall. The chamber beyond was small, circular, and entirely silent. No torches, no windows. Only a soft, shifting glow that came from the stone itself, like light trapped in crystal. The hum vibrated sharply the moment Emma stepped inside, reacting to her presence like a living thing recognizing someone it knew. Leo lifted his head. "Mama," he whispered. Emma's breath caught. "No, sweetheart, I'm not her." But Darius touched her arm lightly. "He does not believe you are Elise. He believes she is here." Emma stared at the glowing stone walls. "But how? How could she be here?" "Elise believed the palace held memories," Darius said. "She believed this chamber could reveal truths hidden by magic or fear." Emma stepped toward the center. The glow brightened. Darius followed closely, his posture protective. Then the hum deepened, and beneath Emma's feet, faint lines of light sparked across the floor. They formed a pattern, slowly spreading outward from where she stood. A symbol she didn't recognize etched itself into brightness. "What is that?" she whispered. Darius stared in disbelief. Elise could never activate it. Emma's heart thundered. "But I'm not her." "Maybe not," he said. "But you share something with her, something the palace recognizes." The light intensified, swirling upward around Emma like soft wind. Leo reached toward it, eyes wide. Emma felt warmth pool at her fingertips. Not fire, not magic, but something quieter. like memory. And then the walls flickered. A figure appeared, not fully formed, not solid, but unmistakably human, a faint outline of a woman with long hair and a soft silhouette. Emma's breath vanished. Leo reached toward the apparition, whispering, "Mama." Darius stepped closer, voice breaking. "Elise?" The figure flickered as if struggling to remain. Emma felt something twist deep inside her chest. A pull, a connection, a thread that trembled with recognition. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice shaking. The outline turned toward her. The hum sharpened. The air tightened. A whisper brushed Emma's ear, not a voice, but a feeling. "You." Emma staggered back. Darius grabbed her arm. "Elise is trying to reach you," he said. "But why?" The figure flickered again, then dissolved into the stone like breath fading into cold air. Emma held Leo tightly, chest burning. "What does she want from me?" she whispered. Darius looked at her with a truth he had been afraid to say. "Not want," he said softly. "Warn." The chamber trembled, because something else, something darker, had awakened with her. The tremor was small at first, barely enough to shake dust from the stone ceiling. Emma held Leo tightly, trying to keep her balance as the floor vibrated under her shoes. Darius stepped instinctively in front of them, his hand lifted in a protective arc, as if his body could shield them from whatever was stirring in the dark. The hum that had filled the echo hall shifted, no longer gentle, no longer familiar. It deepened, turning into something sharp, something cold, something aware. Emma stared at the place where the faint silhouette had vanished. Elise's outline lingered in her mind like a breath against her ear. Warn. That single word clung to her skin. "Darius," she whispered, "we shouldn't stay here." The king nodded once, but his eyes remained fixed on the far wall where silver lines began to spread like cracks filled with light. The lines pulsed, then dimmed, then pulsed again, a heartbeat too slow, too heavy, too unnatural. Darius's voice dropped, barely audible. "The palace is reacting to your presence, or rather, to what follows it." Emma clung to Leo. His small body trembled as he whispered, "Cold." The lights around the room flickered. Darius moved quickly. "We're leaving." He took Emma's arm, guiding her toward the entrance. But the moment they crossed the threshold, a gust of icy air swept down the stairwell, extinguishing every floating lamp. Emma gasped, tightening her hold on Leo. Darkness swallowed the corridor. "Darius," she whispered. "I'm here," he answered, his voice steady despite the shadows closing in around them. "Hold on to me." They climbed the stairs slowly, guided only by the distant glow of the echo hall behind them. Halfway up, a faint whisper drifted through the dark, soft but unmistakable. A woman's voice. Emma froze. Darius felt her stop and turned sharply. "What is it?" She swallowed hard. I heard her." Darius's grip tightened. "Elise?" Emma nodded. "She said, 'They are coming.'" A shiver passed through the king's posture. "Then we move." They reached the upper corridor, where dim torchlight flickered weakly against the stone. 2 guards rushed toward them. Before they reached the group, a sudden chill swept through the hallway. Frost crept along the walls, crawling like veins of ice. The guards stopped abruptly. "Your Majesty," one said, voice shaking. The council chamber froze over. "No one can enter." And the rest of the palace— He hesitated, eyes flicking toward Emma. "Spells are reacting, without cause." Darius exhaled in frustration. "Not without cause." He turned to Emma. "We must get you and Leo to the upper wing. It is the most protected part of the palace." Emma followed him quickly, her footsteps echoing through the cold corridor. Leo whimpered softly. She kissed his forehead. "I've got you," she murmured, though fear tightened her throat. As they approached the grand stairway, Emma spotted something unsettling. Shadows clung to the corners of the hall. Not normal shadows cast by torches, but darker, thicker, almost fluid. They shifted when she looked at them. She clutched Leo tighter. "Darius." The shadows. The king turned. His expression hardened. "Do not look at them directly." "How can they be moving like that?" she whispered. "Because," Darius answered, "they are not shadows." The large doors to the upper wing opened as they approached, and warm light spilled out. a sharp contrast to the frost forming behind them. "Inside," Darius commanded. Emma hurried past the threshold. The warmth soothed Leo, who snuggled into her neck. Darius followed, and immediately sealed the doors with a swipe of his hand. Silver symbols flared across the wood, glowing with protective power. Emma sat on a cushioned bench, trying to steady her breath. "What's happening to the palace?" Darius paced, his expression storm-darkened. "Something Elise feared, something she tried to warn me about." He stopped and looked at Emma with a depth that made her skin prickle. "There is an old force that predates my kingdom, a force tied to humans born with her gift." Emma's eyes widened. "Gift? I still don't even know what my gift is." Darius walked closer. "You feel echoes, imprints of powerful beings even across distance. You sensed the palace, Elise, and now, whatever stirs below." Emma shook her head. "But I've never felt anything like this before." "Because you never stepped into a place charged with ancient magic," Darius said. "Because your gift was dormant until Leo touched you." Emma blinked. "Leo awakened it?" Darius nodded. "He amplified it. Children of mixed lineage, human and vampire, are deeply sensitive to bonds. When he felt the echo of his mother in you, he awakened what had been sleeping inside you." Emma hugged the boy, heart racing. "Then Elise was trying to reach me because she knew something like this would happen." "Yes," Darius whispered, "and because she knew the force that took her might return." Leo lifted his head suddenly and pointed to the far corner of the room. "There," he whispered. Emma turned and froze. A faint shimmer moved across the wall. Not a shadow, not a reflection. Something else. Something that felt like cold breath brushing the back of her neck. Darius stepped in front of them instantly. "Stay behind me." The shimmer coiled like smoke before taking a thin humanoid shape, translucent, flickering, and wrong. Emma's heart hammered. "Darius, what is that?" The king's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "A seeker." The creature stretched toward Emma across the room, its form dissolving and reforming with every step. Leo whimpered and clung to her. Emma held him tighter, breath shaking. Darius lifted his hand, a burst of silver energy erupting from his palm. The force struck the creature, but it only slowed for a moment before continuing forward, undeterred. "It's after me," Emma whispered. "No," Darius corrected, stepping closer to shield her. "It is after what you carry." "What I carry," her voice cracked. "I'm not carrying anything." "Not physically," Darius said urgently. "You carry the echo of Elise, the connection she left behind." Before Emma could respond, the seeker lunged, not at her body, but at the space around her, as if trying to pull something unseen from her chest. Emma gasped. Pain shot through her, sharp and freezing. She stumbled back. Leo cried out, reaching for her face with trembling hands. "Mama!" he whispered frantically, though he meant not that she was Elise, but that he feared losing her too. Darius grabbed the creature and forced it back with another blast of energy, shouting a command in an ancient tongue. The creature dissolved into mist, but instead of disappearing, the mist seeped through the cracks of the floorboards below. Emma collapsed onto her knees, holding Leo protectively. Her chest ached. Darius rushed to her side, kneeling. "Emma," he said, voice trembling despite his strength. "Breathe. Stay with me." She gasped, clinging to Leo as though anchoring herself. Her entire body shook. Darius cupped her face gently. "The seeker did not take it. You're still connected." Emma blinked through tears. "Connected to what? To Elise? To the palace? To this thing?" Darius shook his head slowly. "No. Connected to the force that took Elise." Emma stiffened. The room fell silent. And the hum beneath the palace returned, louder than ever, vibrating through her bones. Something ancient had awakened, and it knew her name. Emma didn't realize she was crying until Leo lifted a small hand to her cheek, wiping the tears with cold fingers that tried, in their innocent way, to comfort her. Her heartbeat pounded like a hammer in her ears, louder than the hum rising beneath the palace floor. Darius stayed close, kneeling in front of her, his hands steady on her shoulders. "Emma," he murmured, trying to bring her back from the edge. "Look at me." She forced her eyes up. His face was carved with concern, jaw tight, eyes glowing faintly, not from anger, but from fear he didn't know how to hide. The hum intensified, shaking the walls with a slow, pulsing rhythm. It wasn't just a sound anymore. It was a presence. Emma felt it in her chest, in her bones, as if something buried deep within the castle had awakened and recognized her. She clutched Leo tighter, shielding his tiny frame with her own. "Why me?" she whispered. "What does it want from me?" Darius glanced toward the floorboards, where faint cracks of silver light appeared between each stone. "It doesn't want you," he said quietly. "It wants what Elise left behind." Emma shook her head. "I don't understand." "Neither do I fully," he admitted. "But Elise always believed her gift was inherited, not chosen." Emma's breath caught. "Inherited?" Darius nodded. She thought she had a twin or counterpart somewhere in the human world, someone who shared the same echo-sensitivity, someone connected to her destiny, to Leo's. Emma's free hand shook as she brushed back her hair. "And you think that someone is me?" Darius studied her. "I no longer think. I know." She felt the room tilt slightly. A tremor ran beneath the palace again, sharper this time. A low groan echoed through the walls, like an ancient door sliding open deep underground. Leo whimpered and clung tighter to Emma, burying his face in her collarbone. She kissed the top of his head instinctively. "You're safe," she whispered. "I won't let anything happen to you." Darius watched her, not with surprise, but with something close to awe. "You protect him as if he were yours." Emma lifted her eyes. Maybe that's why Elise reached for me. Maybe she needed someone who would do what she couldn't anymore. The king's throat bobbed with a quiet swallow. Or she knew that only you could finish what she began. A sudden crack split the room. Emma jumped, holding Leo tighter. Darius rose instantly, placing himself between her and the growing fissure in the floor. Silver light spilled upward, forming swirling patterns before rising in tendrils that looked like glowing, twisting vines. Emma gasped. "Darius!" But he didn't move away. He lifted a protective barrier with a sweep of his hand. The vines hit the invisible shield, sparks flying, before recoiling back into the cracks. Then, silence. For several breaths, none of them moved. Leo whimpered again and pressed his small hand to the floor as if listening. "Below," he whispered. "Calling." Emma's skin prickled. "Calling who?" Leo turned his face upward and pointed at Emma. Darius inhaled sharply. "It's calling you." Emma staggered back, but Darius caught her before she could fall. "Listen to me," he said. His voice was no longer calm. It trembled beneath the weight of fear and urgency. "The force that took Elise, it wasn't a creature. It wasn't someone you can fight with weapons." Emma shook her head, trying to understand. "Then what was it?" "A fissure," Darius said. "A tear in the boundary between our world and the realm below. A realm filled with ancient echoes, impressions of power left by the first beings to walk these lands." Emma blinked frantically. "But how could Elise be dragged into something like that?" "Because she was born with the sensitivity to hear them," he said. "And now that connection, that echo, is moving in you." The hum deepened again, making Emma wince. Darius touched her cheek gently, trying to anchor her. "Emma, look at me. You are not Elise, but you carry her thread, the part of her that remained in this world." Emma shuddered. "What does that mean, Darius? Am I supposed to go where she went?" His jaw clenched. "No, I will not allow that." Leo suddenly reached up and placed his small hand over Emma's heart. A spark, tiny but real, pulsed beneath his palm. Emma gasped and nearly dropped him. The spark traveled through her chest, spreading warmth and cold at the same time. Darius stared in disbelief. The echo is responding. The room trembled again, this time accompanied by a distant groan, as if the earth beneath the palace shifted. Shadows gathered along the edges of the walls, twisting into shapes that moved, even though no wind blew. Darius stepped closer to Emma, shielding her and Leo with his body. "Whatever Elise was trying to warn you about, it's nearly here." Emma swallowed, trying to steady her breath. "Tell me what I have to do." "Stay behind me," Darius said firmly. "Do not let go of Leo. And whatever you feel pulling at you, whatever you hear, do not answer it." Emma nodded shakily. The floor vibrated again, stronger this time. A wave of cold swept through the room. The shadows thickened and then, as if exhaling, scattered violently, as though fleeing something emerging from the depths below. Darius pushed Emma back toward the far wall, shielding her. "Get ready," he said under his breath. "Something is coming through." The stone in the center of the room cracked open. Not wide, not enough for anything physical to emerge, but enough for a stream of silver mist to seep upward, twisting in spirals. The mist rose like a column, shifting, condensing, forming the faint shape of a woman. Emma's breath caught. The outline was clearer this time. Long hair, soft shoulders, a hand reaching forward. "Elise," Darius whispered. Emma stepped forward before she realized she was moving. Leo clung to her, but didn't cry. He stared at the figure with wide, knowing eyes. The silhouette lifted its head toward Emma. Even without a face, Emma felt recognition bloom like a warm ache in her chest. The silhouette's hand reached toward her. Emma raised her own trembling hand. Darius grabbed her wrist. "Emma, don't—" But the moment he touched her, the silhouette flared with sudden brightness, illuminating the room with blinding silver light. Emma cried out, stumbling as the force surged outward, shaking the floor. Leo pressed his forehead against her, whispering a soft, trembling word. "Remember." The light dimmed suddenly, and the silhouette dissolved. Emma collapsed to her knees, gasping for breath. Darius caught her just before she hit the ground. "Emma!" Her vision blurred. Voices echoed faintly. Elise's whisper lingered in the air like a fading chord. And then, a memory she had never lived flickered in her mind, brief but unmistakable. A woman holding a newborn, crying. A whispered promise. A name. Emma. Her own name. She gasped and clutched her chest. What did she show me?" Darius held her tightly, his voice shaking. "Not what she showed you," he said. "What she returned to you." Emma stared at him with wide, terrified eyes. "Your forgotten past." And for the first time since this began, Emma realized she hadn't just been connected to Elise. She had been part of the story all along. What did you think of the story? Subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who will also be moved today.